Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, everyone. So we are talking this morning about the reckless hate that we have just seen in Australia. Now, I don't know if you guys understand, so the Bondi Beach shooting. I really struggle to try and comprehend this in my brain. This was a father and son who did this shooting, and in my head, I can't conceptualize what goes through these people's heads. I'm going to give you an outline of what happened. Now, it has come out. Most mainstream media articles are now reporting that this was a father and son who committed this. I don't even know how to call it, because I don't want to call it a crime, but it clearly is a crime. It's just beyond my conscious comprehension. You kind of, in fact, you don't even understand. When you hear of lone wolf attacks, you kind of get it. People, they're isolated, they're in their bedrooms, they're watching stuff, and they're radicalized. This is a father and son. So what does that say about the further ideological war that I believe we're in? Surely at whatever age your father says to your, whatever age, guys, okay? At whatever age you are, whatever walk of life you're in, you don't want your children to go before their time, right? Tell me I'm wrong. Some of you guys might not like your children. I don't think that's the case. But at what stage, in your life do you and your son, or you and your dad, if you're thinking about it the other way, decide to do this? I honestly, guys, my brain can't comprehend my brain can't, and the only way I can describe this is a reckless hate. The only thing I really can, guys, I can only describe this as absolutely reckless hate. So the police now in Australia have confirmed the two gunmen were a father and son. Sajid Akram, who was 50 years old, the father, a licensed firearms owner since 2015, holding 6 legally registered firearms, including rifles and shotguns for recreational hunting. He arrived in Australia in 1998 on a student visa. So can you imagine somebody living in a country for that long? You're living in a country, almost 30 years he's been living in that country. Can you imagine the type of reckless hate, the absolute hate that's been inside that guy? And then we've got Naveed Akram, who is 24 years old, the son, Australian-born, critically injured, under police guard in hospital. He's expected to survive and face charges. Now, he was assessed by the Australian Security Service in 2019 due to associations with individuals linked to an Islamic State cell. So this is a guy. He's been born in Australia, raised in Australia. I'm going to assume that it was better living in Australia than, where these people came from. Otherwise, they wouldn't have come in the first place. And for reasons I don't understand, for reasons I've no idea about, these people just decided to take some guns and, 15 or 16 people are now dead. And I'm saying 15 or 16 because some media reports are saying 15 people and some media reports are saying 16. So I don't know which one that is.
Now, there have been reports by the Australian police, I guess. I can't remember who it was. The Australian media basically have been reporting that the pair alleged allegiance to Islamic State without ISIS flags found in their vehicle. They prepared at short-term rental and raided properties. No evidence of a wider cell. There's no evidence of a wider cell. Now, this has brought in a big conversation in Australia about gun laws. I don't think the gun laws need to be laxed in Australia. I think if those two people, if those two people wanted to do that, they're going to do it. Literally, they're going to do it, guys. I think the bigger conversation, right? I think the bigger conversation is who's holding those guns, who's driving those cars, who's going stabby. I think that's the real conversation that nobody seems to be having. If we go down all these attacks, there's a common denominator here that that joins all these attacks together. And I really am like, honestly, guys, you don't see me lost for words often. But when I first found out, when the rumors were first out that this was a father and his son, I was in disbelief, absolute disbelief. I didn't believe it. I was in absolute disbelief that this was a father and son. And I have no idea. So I will come back onto this in a little bit, guys, but I just want to throw this out there, and I've used the words in the title, reckless hate, because it is, and what can men do against such reckless hate? This was a guy who came over and he'd lived in Australia for almost 30 years. Sorry, guys, let me put the chat on. He lived in Australia for almost 30 years. His son was born, raised, and I'm going to assume Australia is being good to him, and here we are. Guys, a father and son. And like I said at the beginning of this live stream, guys, okay, if you're a father, you don't want anything bad to happen to your son, right? Or your daughter, or your children, And I thought, in my head, I've always said this, guys. I've always said that there's more that unites people than. I've always said that there's more there's more that brings people together than divides people. I'm not so sure now. I'm not so sure, because the universal truths, right? Universal truths of I want to protect my children. That's just gone out the window, guys. That has just literally gone out the window. That has gone out the window now. So the universal truth of I want my children to be safe and well, that universal truth is gone now, because this father and son in Australia on Bondi Beach, the father clearly had no regard for his son's safety. He's like, yeah, whatever, son. It's absolutely insane, and it really has swizzled me, guys. It really has swizzled me, because I can't get behind this, I just can't understand it. I don't understand it. The words escape me. So I will come back onto that later on, guys. But we do have World War III also approaching. World War IV, you guys can see it now. World War IV is going to be the fighting on our streets, like you guys have just seen. And if we assume that this sort of reckless hate is potentially replicated in other parts of the world, you guys can see what carnage could be on our streets. So just for context, guys, when I talk about World War III, I talk about the international war in Ukraine, guns, tanks, bombs, trains, planes, automobiles, drones, submarines, warships, long-range cruise missiles. When I talk about World War IV, I'm talking about the war on our streets that's going to be fought, won, and lost by civilians. Now, there's an article out. Let me share this with you guys, actually. So this is an article, guys, from the who's this from? The Independent. The Independent this morning. The whole nation must step up amid Russian threat to NATO. Armed forces chief warns. So I'm going to read this article for you guys, but I'll stop sharing it now. So this is the article I'm going off, guys. Okay, this was released this morning. This morning, Monday the 15th at 8:03 GMT. So like only a couple of hours old. So, Chief of the Defence Staff, Sir Richard Knighton, will warn the situation is more dangerous than I have ever known during my career. And he's absolutely right, guys. He's absolutely right. So, you guys can see this now. It's not me speculating anymore. You guys, that's a lovely picture, actually. You guys can see this now in real time, okay? I'm just going to read this article. The whole of the country will need to step up to ensure the nation can continue to function in a crisis amid growing threats against the UK. The head of the British Armed Forces will warn, making a case for a society-wide approach to defence and deterrence. Chief of the Defence Staff, Sir Richard Knighton, will say the situation is more dangerous than I have ever known in my career. He will call on people who are not soldiers, not sailors or aviators to nevertheless invest their skills and money. So now you're getting taxed, right? And you're going to have to invest your money in building up the nation, in building up national resilience. Now, I saw this in Ukraine firsthand in 2022. The government were. I mean, there's vast amounts of corruption in Ukraine, guys. I'm not going to pretend there's not. The government were not spending on the stuff that they should have been. So early on in 2022, like normal everyday Ukrainians were spending their own money on military products to protect themselves. So like, can you imagine, I don't know. Can you imagine, Folkestone, right? If you live in Folkestone, right? In fact, if you live in Reading, let's go with Reading. If you live in Reading and the bad guys were coming and you had the military just were like, yeah, we're good. And the people of Reading actually had to come out onto the streets themselves and secure their own town. That's kind of like what it was, and like this article says here, we will be calling on people who are not soldiers, not sailors or aviators to nevertheless invest their skills and money on building up national resilience. It comes as the new head of MI6. Do you know what? I don't even think there's a branch called MI6. I think it's Secret Intelligence Service, but whatever, we'll call it MI6. So MI6 is, they're calling it MI6. So MI5 is the military intelligence, the fifth branch, and that's mainland UK. MI6 is the military intelligence sixth branch, although there isn't a sixth branch. It's called Secret Intelligence Service, but they call it MI6. MI6 is international, so that's overseas. It comes as the new head of MI6 is set to warn that Britain is already on the front line against Russia and argue that the UK is facing an age of uncertainty as the rules of conflict are being rewritten by hostile actors. I've been screaming this as many people as I can. The rules of the game are changing and they're going to have to make new names for these things because we are facing something inland United Kingdom right now, whereby you don't need to send cruise missiles to the United Kingdom. You don't need to send these, you don't need to send Orsnik or these these nuclear weapons. You literally don't need to do that anymore, guys. In fact, you would be a bit of a douchebag if you did send those because, first of all, they're expensive. Second of all, they're expensive in the time, they're expensive in the concept of financially. It costs a lot of money to develop those weapons. You know, and it's expensive because when these long-range missiles are launched, you know where they come from. You can track them via satellites. You know, they leave a launch signature. So you know where those missiles are coming from. You will respond to those threats. Now, for the same cost, let me just Google this. How much does arsenic cost? Right, there is no cost on arsenic. Right, how much does a Kinzhal missile cost? How? Okay, so a Kinzhal missile, which is what the Russians are using quite, they're using them quite regularly. A Kinzhal missile, and I'm just getting this off the internet, guys. The numbers may be skewed. But one Kinzhal missile is $2.5 million. All right, so $2.5 million for one Kinzhal missile. Okay, I'm just doing the Raven maths here. Now, that, as I understand, a Kinzhal missile, I think the payload on a Kinzhal missile is 150 kilos, okay? So you can put 150 kilos of explosives somewhere, okay? For $2.5 million. How much damage do you think you could do in the United Kingdom if you had $2.5 million to spend on criminal gangs? Seriously, guys, it's a serious question, you know. So for one Kinzhal missile, that's one missile, $2.5 million. If you had $2.5 million to pay criminal gangs to go do sabotage and go rammy and stabby, like, how much damage do you think you could do for $2.5 million? Or like, what would that be? Like, I don't know, £2.1 million or something. Just for £1 million. No, it's clearly over £1 million. So you understand now the new dimensions of, the new dimensions of warfare. These are new dimensions of warfare. So when this guy, what was his name? Sir Richard. What's his name? Richard. I don't know. Richard. Is it Richard? I don't know. Richard Knighton is saying that the whole of the UK need to invest their skills and money to build up a nation of resilience. Sorry, to build up national resilience. Because this is the new aspect of warfare. You know, and the new head of MI6 is saying that, you know, he's set to warn that Britain is already on the front line against Russia, and argue that the UK is facing an age of uncertainty as the rules of conflict are being rewritten. And they are, guys. You know, like, how long have I been saying this? Literally, how long have I been saying this? Where we don't have, you know, we don't need Russian soldiers parachuting in, you know, to achieve military aims. They can just spend money and pay criminal gangs, and that's going to be the new aspect of war. So in her first public speech taking up the role, Belize Metrawelli, guys, that's her name. I don't even know how to pronounce that. But she will address the acute threat posed by an aggressive, expansionist, revisionist Russia. And, you know, whether you guys, you know, and I keep saying this, and I will keep saying it, whether you guys think that Russia's our threat, whether you guys think that Russia is our enemy, doesn't matter. You know, doesn't matter, because at some point, none of it's going to matter, because we'll be in that war. And when those missiles start coming and those Russians, you know, are heading towards us or whatever, you know, you can say to them all you want, we're not your enemy. If you don't defeat them, the same will happen. So in a speech at the Royal United Service Institute on Monday, Sir Richard is expected to say our armed forces always need to be ready to fight and win. That's why readiness is such a priority. But deterrence is also about our resilience to these threats. It's about how we harness our national power. From universities to industry, the rail network to the NHS. I think these, honestly, guys, sometimes I think these people are deluded. I really do. I just like, first of all, I know there are a lot of intelligent people working behind the scenes here at government. I do. I know there are some fantastic, I'm not talking about like your David Lammies and your Keir Starmers. I'm talking about the advisors that work behind the scenes. And I know these guys are fantastic. I know they are smart. I know that they can see what's coming. You know, and I struggle, you know, in my brain, I struggle to to feel that things are going this bad. And that's what brings me on to a migrant army, guys. You know, I don't like, it would make sense now to have some sort of service for citizenship. But then if that's true, if service for citizenship is a thing, you know, if we do have service for citizenship, how long has this war been planned? You know, literally, how long has this war been planned? For those of you guys who've been following for a while, you guys know I wasn't involved, but I had a lot of, I've got a lot of, well, it's not relevant now, but I had a lot of inside knowledge on, what's his name? Hunter Biden, when he went out to Ukraine. I mean, all this information is out in the public now, so I can talk about it, you know. And one of the things that was really peculiar was the money that the Biden, allegedly for entertainment purposes, I was told by a friend, so this may or may not be true, the amount of money that Hunter Biden, through his, I'm being told on the back channels, may or may not have put into the Ukrainian, or maybe even the Russian, the Ukrainian energy infrastructure, i.e. buying up these gas fields. And then it was a very peculiar, it was very peculiar because they never started, exploiting those reserves. Now, if you know there's a war coming and your multi-million-pound dollar equipment's going to get destroyed, kind of makes sense not to put that machinery in place. Anyway, I'll continue with this article. It's all about our defense and resilience being a higher national priority for all of us. We need an all-in mentality. We just don't have that anymore, guys. So this guy, Sir Richard Knighton, or whatever his name is, like, I think he's deluded. You know, if he goes to parts of Birmingham, parts of London, parts of Leeds, you know, and if he asks himself, does it feel like there's an all-in mentality here? I would say it doesn't. Anyway, so he's saying we're going to need all the people of the United Kingdom, not just soldiers, sailors, aviators, to invest their skills and money in innovation and problem solving on the nation's behalf. I don't want to invest my money, guys. Literally, I don't want to invest my money in, I don't want to invest my money in this country because I will get no return. So what does that even mean? Is he asking people to, is he asking normal people for some sort of war tax? Sir Richard will warn that Russian leadership has made it clear its wish to challenge, limit, divide, and ultimately destroy NATO. Discussing the threats faced by Britain, he will say, the situation is more dangerous than I have known in my career, and the response requires more than simply strengthening our armed forces. A new era of defense doesn't just mean our military and government stepping up, as we are, it means the whole of the nation stepping up. He will announce 50 million for new defense technical excellence colleges. We don't need colleges, guys. We don't need colleges. We need tanks. We need artillery. and we need men, right? We don't need more colleges. Which will, this will provide short courses aimed at ensuring training can be accessed for new and existing staff in the defence sector more quickly. The Ministry of Defence said he would also discuss the need to rebuild our defence capabilities and the national infrastructure which underpins that resilience. On defence spending, Sir Richard is expected to say, I find myself in a position that none of my predecessors during my career have ever faced, looking at the prospect of the largest sustained increase in defence spending since the Cold War. This is because the price of peace is increasing. Meanwhile, speaking from inside MI6 headquarters in Vauxhall, London, the head of MI6 said, Putin should be in no doubt. Our support is enduring. The pressure we apply on Ukraine's behalf will be sustained. Like, this article is absolutely wild, guys. Right, I'm going to jump onto the chat, ladies and gentlemen. That's what we're talking about this morning. You guys can see World War IV now on the streets, right? You guys can see World War IV on the streets. We have just seen an act of reckless hate in Australia. I don't know how else to put this. You know, a reckless hate in Australia whereby a father and son, like father and son, Sajid Akram. So these are the confirmed names, guys, and this is from the Australian police. Okay, this is from the Australian police. So the Australian police have confirmed that the father and son gunmen in the Bondi Beach shooting were named as Sajid Akram, who was 50 years old. He was the father, obviously, a licensed firearms owner since 2015. He arrived in Australia in 1998 on a student visa. Just put that in your brains, guys, okay? Put that in your brains, all right? Australia has given this guy, you know, almost 30 years. You know, almost 30 years of looking after him. Went over to Australia, studied in Australia. I don't know what he studied. You know, he then had a son, Naveed Akram, 24 years old, Australian born. You know, so this guy, Naveed Akram, he's Australian. He, you know, as far as the Australian authorities are concerned, he is as Australian as everybody else. You know, he is as Australian as everybody else. You know, he's got an Australian passport. He was born in Australia. He is as Australian as everybody else. Now, he was previously assessed by the Australian Security Service, or is it security? The Australian Security Services, basically. He was assessed in 2019 due to his association with individuals linked to an Islamic State cell. But they deemed he wasn't an immediate threat. It turns out that didn't age well. And what I'm getting at here, you know, with the headline, Reckless Hate, father and son, all right? You know, and I've always thought that there are universal truths. I have, guys. I've always thought there's universal truths. I've always thought there's more stuff that connects people. I've always thought there's more stuff that connects people than divides them. And I've always said a universal truth is that we want the best for our children, right? Am I right in saying that, guys? Or do some of you guys think, oh, I'm all me, me, me. When you have a child, you literally want the best for them, right? You've seen the little memes of, like, you know, the parents, and they're taking little bits out of themselves and putting them into the children. That's literally what you know. That's literally what you're you know, what you do as a parent, or I thought what you did as a parent. Now, when I see this father and son, you know, a father and son are the mass shooters, I don't know if people understand the concept of that. So when these guys were having the dinner, you know, maybe, you know, when they're having the dinner, you know, in Australia, they've lived in Australia now for almost 30 years. The son has known nothing else but Australia. He's grown up in Australia. At some point, the conversations come out at that dinner table, you know, at some point, that conversations come out about, hey, obviously, you know, I'm going to assume it will have happened over time, you know, but that conversations come out and they've said, hey, son, yes, dad, do you fancy doing a mass shooting next weekend? Yeah, I will do that, dad. Yeah. Are we planning on coming back? No, we'll just keep shooting until the police take us down, and then we'll go up and get our 72 virgins or something. I'm going to assume something like that happened. So that whole concept, my whole concept now, it's just been turned on its head, because my whole, one of my life philosophies was, I can't even say is anymore. I can't even say was. I'm going to have to say was. One of my life philosophies was, you always want the best for your children. So under no circumstances, like, if your son said that to you, dad, do you fancy going doing a, like, you know, this weekend, you know, Sunday, do you fancy going onto Bondi Beach and doing a mass shooting? It's Hanukkah. Like, if your son said that to you, you would be terrified, right? You'd be like, what? Whoa. You're like, and I get it, right? In some families and in some communities, they're not going to report them to the police. You know, they're not. They're just not going to do that. But you wouldn't say to your son, yeah, let's do it. We'll both do it. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me. You want the preservation and the continuation. You want the preservation and the continuation of your children. That supersedes your own safety. You know, that supersedes your own safety. So as a parent, you will put yourself in danger for your children to protect your children. So, you know, when I put, you know, the title to this live stream, Reckless Hate, I don't know any other, I genuinely don't know any other words. I don't know any other words to, like, describe that. They hated, guys, I'm going to put this out there. Let me know what you think. If this, right, guys, do you think this statement is true? That father must have hated Jews more than he loves his own son. What the actual fuck? Like, how do you even conceptualize that? I don't hate anybody more than I love, you know. Nobody should hate anyone more than they love their children. That's just some crazy shit, guys. That is just some crazy stuff. I don't know, you know. I don't know. Anyway, so right, guys, I'm going to jump onto the chat. I've been waffling for 33 minutes. I'm so taken back about this, guys. This father and son thing. Like, you know, it's just beyond. It's beyond, guys. It really is beyond. Templar Matt is saying cars can be more dangerous than a gun, and you don't see everyone mowing people down because there's more good people than bad. We need to arm the public and keep the public safe. Yeah, look, guys, this is an argument. You know, this is an argument that a lot of people are putting out there. I'll tell you where I am with gun laws in the United Kingdom. Right now, I think in the United Kingdom, they are where they need to be. All right, I do. I really do. I think gun laws in the United Kingdom are where they need to be. If we start to see people in the United Kingdom and shootings happening in the United Kingdom, then the gun laws need to change, in my opinion, and everybody just needs to be able to tool up. Literally, everybody needs to be able to tool up. And I think that's the way we have to go. Because we've seen from, we've seen from Australia, right, that the police had their hands up and they weren't, the police were not doing anything. Again, you know, if this scenario would have happened in America, in Texas or somewhere, Like, how long do you think that person, those people would have been up there before people were shooting back at them? Cheryl Heblestone is saying, just said on the news, Sean, 16 people, heartbreaking. And, you know, it is 16. So, so, okay, guys, look, I don't know what the actual number is. Some news articles reporting 15 people. Some people are reporting 16 people. Each one of those people had a mum and a dad. They did. Each one of those people had a mum and a dad. You know, I don't know the age ranges, but you would like to think that everybody's got a mum and a dad. Those people may have had children. They all had family. They all had hopes and dreams and aspirations and lives. And not only are they gone now, but their mum and their dad, their children, their wives, their girlfriends, their husbands, their brothers, their sisters, all their lives are ruined now. All their lives are ruined. And for what? Reckless hate. Reckless hate. Those people, you know, the father and the son, they must have hated the Jewish, you know, that father. That father must have hated the Jews more than he loved his own son. And that to me is like that ideology. Just think about that, guys, right? We have got people, you've seen it there, right? I don't know. Do you think they're the only ones? You know, that father hated those people more than he loved his own son. And how do you live with that type of person? You know, that lives in your country for almost 30 years. I'm just going to scroll down, guys, and get some comments. Silly Gallardi is saying there was violence against Jewish celebrations yesterday in Germany and in Amsterdam. It maybe seems less important, but history shows it always starts with Jews, but doesn't stop there. Michael is saying you shouldn't always believe what's on TV. No, I agree. You shouldn't always believe on what's on TV. The scenes that I saw, you know, there was I believe there was definitely a mass shooting yesterday in Australia. I will say that I do think we're going to be at a place soon, and I don't think this was it. Guys. But we are going to be at a place soon where we're going to be seeing things on the TV, and we're not going to know whether it's AI. We're not going to know whether it's we're not going to know what it is, basically. Stefan is saying the men of England need to stand up and fuck these MI5 and MI6. All corrupt. We have to defend ourselves by all means necessary, and no one is going to fight their illegitimate proxy war. So, let me just get that up again. Okay, so Stephen Ward. Okay, here in the United Kingdom, we don't have any legal framework to protect ourselves, you know, and I do keep saying that because it's true. We have no legal framework to protect ourselves in the United Kingdom. So if we are getting attacked in the United Kingdom, what we are legally obliged to do is phone the police, and then they probably won't answer. So you've got to send an email. Talk of whether gun laws should be tightened again in the UK. This doesn't stop the idiots doing harm. No, it doesn't, guys. Look, the gun laws are tight enough in the United Kingdom. They really are. They're really tight in the UK, and we don't have that gun culture. We don't, and you know, we don't have that gun culture. We have a stabby culture. We have a rammy culture, but we don't have gun culture. And at the moment, you know, at the moment, I don't think we, like here in the United Kingdom, you know, I don't think we need to open up gun laws and say that everybody should have guns, because if you start giving everybody guns, then bad guys get guns. And right now, I kind of not like that. I don't want that to happen. And we're not witnessing yet, anyway. We're not witnessing mass shootings in the United Kingdom. Shaky Jakey saying tiny hats aren't doing very well at controlling the world. It looks to me like they're being taken out. Tiny hats. I don't know what that means. I don't know what tiny hats is. What do we mean tiny hats? Tiny hats aren't doing well at controlling the world. Ah, right, okay, right, okay, I'm okay, okay, right, okay, right, okay. Right, okay. Right, okay, okay, right. So I'm assuming that tiny hats there is I'm assuming that I'm pretty sure that tiny hats here is a direct you know, he means like the Jewish population. Look, okay, what else? What's just happened? Like, okay, so Shaky. Okay, Shaky. Let me ask you a question. And look, I'm British and I'm Britain first, and I want the people of this country to be safe. I want the people of every country to be safe. And I think as soon as we start going into space and start, you know, industrializing space and taking the resources in space, all these wars will stop because people will be making money. Anyway, like, if you're white Christian, where's your homeland? Honestly, guys, if you're white Christian, where is your homeland? Where can you go and say, this is my homeland. I'm safe here. I'm always going to have a home here. England? Is England the homeland for white Christians? Where is it, guys? Where is your homeland? If you're white Christian, you know, where can you go? Now, I don't think people should be critical of, you know, there's a lot of things you can be critical of everybody for, but I don't think people should be critical of Jewish people for holding on to and defending what they perceive as their homeland. I don't think that should be, you know, I don't think people should be critical of that at all. Who Dares Wins One is saying, what weapon do you think the cops used when they neutralized the shooter? I'm actually going to say I think it was there was a police officer ran behind them, and I think it's that guy that that did it. I think he only had a pistol. Templar Matt is saying the bad guys can get better weapons than... Okay, so first of all, guys, okay, weapons are illegal in the United Kingdom, and the definition of a weapon is, as far as well, okay, I need to caveat this, okay? So a weapon in the United Kingdom is defined, I believe, and do your own research, but as far as I'm concerned, a weapon in the United Kingdom is something that is only designed to hurt people, that has no other use, all right? So that's a weapon. So weapons in the United Kingdom are illegal, guys, all right? So, you know, I think it's a common misconception. Weapons are illegal, but using something as a weapon is not illegal, if that makes sense. So if you're in, like, I don't know, if you're in an active shooter scenario and the bad guys burst through and it's going to go really bad, and you decide to pick a heavy object up and attack that person with that heavy object, using it as a weapon, you're using something as a weapon, but that thing is not a weapon. You guys, you know, I'm going on, guys. Guys, I don't recommend that anybody starts tooling up. All right, it's more hassle than it's worth. It really is. If you want to start getting ready, get yourself a petrol 4x4, and put an extended fuel tank in it. All right, you're going to need that more than you're going to need any sort of weaponry, and when and that will help you get to the phase when people need weaponry. Because right now, guys, you know, if you start, I just don't see. Look, I've been a security consultant, like, and a military advisor for. I started my career in 2019, so I've got like close to 30 years experience now. And I know you wouldn't think it looking at my beautiful face. I've got close to 30 years experience working in this industry. I've been to some of the worst places in Iraq. I've been to some of the worst places in Afghanistan. I've been to some of the dark places in Ukraine, in Syria. I've never once, as a consultant, I've never once had to shoot my way out of anywhere. You know, I've always drove out of there. Always, guys. Every time I've always drove out of there. One of the things I talk about when I, like, for example, in last night's live stream, you know, we're talking about run, hide, fight. How fast can you run? Yeah, literally, how fast can you run? I don't know how fast you can run. Like, you know, average person can do a fair sprint, maybe 11, 12 mile an hour. How fast can the slowest car drive? Yeah, the maths are stacked up, okay? So, you know, if you're looking to protect yourself, if you're looking to, drive away, guys, okay? That's my advice. Get into your car and drive away and be competent at it. James is saying, I thought it was a small group on the beach, but I've just seen the size of that beach. So many people in it. People, women, children running for cover. Yeah, it was crackers, guys. It was absolutely bonkers. It was absolutely bonkers. Again, you know, I'm going back to this, you know, father and son. I can only describe that as reckless hate. And that father must have hated those people more than he loved his own son. There's nothing you can do when a man's hate overtakes his love. You're fucked. That's it. It's over. Emerson is saying there was crisis actors involved yesterday. Same people in other incidents keep cropping up in these things. It's been proven many times. That doesn't take away from the fact that it was horrific. Okay, I don't know about crisis. Okay. Emerson, can you tell me where that is? Where you got that information from? So Emerson, can you tell me where you got that information from? And if I get it up, if I can find it, I will share it. I'm not so sure crisis actors would have been needed yesterday. So crisis actors, all right? It's when you go and report on these, when you go and report on these incidents, like, you may not see anything, and that doesn't make good TV. So, you know, what some people are saying, and I may or may not have understood this, but people are saying that the news crew will take some people with them and they will say, right, okay, for this news article, you guys just walk across the background and make it look like something's happened. Martin is saying, I've got 24 before diesel. I've got 24 before diesel. I've got 24. Is that a 4x4 diesel? Is that what you're saying? One extreme, and I've got 24 before diesel. I don't know what this means, guys. What's a 24 before diesel? I don't know what a 24 before diesel is. I've got 24 before diesel. One extreme, and one I've got 24 before. Okay. I don't know what that means, Martin, but I think what you're saying is I've got a 4x4 diesel. So, look, guys, the reason I tell people to get a petrol vehicle is because if you guys believe, and I do, we're heading towards a global conflict on an industrial scale, all the diesel will go to the military. It will go to the military. It will go to the haulage companies. It will go to the shipping companies because the society runs on diesel. It's 30% more dense. When I was in Ukraine in 2024, I'm pretty sure you couldn't get diesel at the petrol stations or the gas stations or whatever you want to call them. So because you couldn't get diesel, and you could only, and they were rationing people to only have 10 liters of petrol. So you can imagine the scenario now, right? If you've got your big 4x4, you've got your big 4x4 with the huge off-road wheels, and you've got all your stuff in the back. You've now got to do a 700-mile drive to the tip of Scotland. If I don't know, whatever. You've got to drive to the tip of Scotland. That big diesel guzzler, when you can't get any diesel, it starts to become a liability. All right. So I would say if you're looking for a bug out vehicle, get a petrol vehicle. Yes, I know diesel's more efficient than petrol, but if there's no diesel, it's not going to be more efficient because you've got no fuel. Get yourself a diesel. Get yourself a petrol vehicle, and an economic one. Like you don't like realistically. Do you need that 4x4? Do you need that 4x4 with all the stuff? Are you really going to fill it all? Maybe you are. I don't know. Maybe you're going to take like a market stall with you or something and like start selling blankets. I don't know. But make sure you've got a nice, I would say a 4x4 at a minimum, because you may need to mount curbs. Don't put big 4x4 wheels on your bug out vehicle, because they're just going to slow you down on the roads, and you're going to need to make distance, and to make best distance, you're going to be traveling on roads. Yes, have some sort of 4x4 vehicle, because the reason for this is you may need to mount curbs. You may need to mount a curb to get onto the other side of the road to drive down somewhere. Yes, I know I shouldn't be saying that, but you can imagine it now, right? The apocalypse, global apocalypse. Everybody's going that way, right? And nobody's going that way. I'd go on the other side of the road. I would. I'd go on the other side of the road, on the other hard shoulder. I would. Because you've got to make that distance, guys. You've got to make that distance. No point sitting in traffic that's not moving. You would have to do this quite often. When I was working in certainly in Baghdad, in Baghdad there are, when you're driving, like when I was working in Baghdad in like what year was it? Like 2010, maybe 2011. Yeah, maybe definitely 2011. You would have roadside bombs. There'll be roadside bombs going off. The Iraqi police would be shooting with militias. If you went up to Sada City, that place was wild. If you were driving up to Ramadi and you went through Fallujah, all these places were crazy. You would get shot at. There would be explosions. You would need to improvise and think on your feet. So let me ask you this, guys. All right, you're driving down the street. There's an explosion in the UK. You're driving. There's an explosion, and a load of gunfire. What are you going to do? You're just going to sit in the traffic? Oh, I'll just wait here. No, you're going to want to do something, aren't you? You're going to want to do defensive driving. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys want to know what defensive driving is, take a competent defensive driving course. There are lots of them. Okay, right. Martin was saying, I've got two 4x4s, one Mitsubishi, one Volvo, both diesels, because all the farm vehicles are diesels and diesel is everywhere. Okay, look, guys, I do think diesel will be in short supply. I do, guys. I think diesel will be in short supply. Right, I'm gonna go to the toilet real quick, guys. I tried to flesh it out, but I can't flesh it out. I'm going to go to the toilet real quick, and I'll talk about what we've been talking about on this live stream. Reckless hate, father and son, mass shooting, Bondi Beach, World War III, which is the international aspect, and World War IV, which is going to be fought on our streets. Wait there, guys, and I'll be right back. The Watchman is saying, get a chieftain, get a chieftain. There's that shop that there's actually I think the UK has the biggest, I think the UK actually has the biggest dealership for like used military, like tanks and stuff. Look, guys, I'm not a tank guy. I'm not a tank guy. If it's got tracks on, right? If it's got tracks on, to me, it's a tank. But yes, I think you can. There's a company you can buy them in the United Kingdom. AJ Aesthetics is saying, you really come into your own, Sean, when there is a serious crisis like this one. It's horrible events, but makes your content the best out there. Thank you so much, AJ Aesthetics. I appreciate this. My skill set is in hostile environments and and the military sphere, so it is something I do know a lot about. Shaky is saying, in movies, aren't farms the first places that get looted? I think the first places that'll get looted will be the inner cities. The inner cities will be the first places to get looted. If you look at the demographics of inner cities, the build-up, the human density of inner cities, they're going to be the first places to go to shit. Then people will spread out. People will start looking for other places. I'm just looking at the chat, guys. Martin's arguing. Paranoid, he's saying he has a child's bladder. He has the bladder of a thimble. Raven has the bladder of a thimble. If a shift hits the fan, the roads are blocked. You need something to push through. Get out of there. Okay. So look, guys, listen. Okay. If you've got a plan, that is absolutely fine. I've been in those situations, right? I've been in those situations where the road is blocked and you're in a line of traffic. All right. Doesn't matter what 4x4 you've got. If there's a line of traffic, you're not going anywhere. You're stuck in that traffic. So when we're talking about big, heavy 4x4s, I get it, guys. I do. I get it. I totally get that theory. I'd rather be fast than nimble. I would, guys. I'd rather be. I'd be on a quad. I'd probably be on a quad bike. If we didn't have the kids, I'd be on a quad bike. Rasta Sounds is saying, good morning, Raven. Good morning to you. Silly Gallardi is saying D9 apparently very important. I don't know what that means. I don't know what D9 is. I don't know what D9 is, but if you can give me some context. Right, listen, guys, I'm going to run through real quick what we've been talking about on this live stream. And I'm going to give this in reference initially to World War IV. Now, I'm just going to give you guys this as it is, okay? I'm going to give you guys this as it is. So, Australian, in response to the Bondi bee shooting yesterday, the father and son who committed these acts, murders, father and son, okay? I'll give you the facts, and then I'll give you my thoughts on that. So Sajid these are the names that have been produced by the Australian police. Sajid Akram, 50 years old, he was the father and a licensed gun owner. He arrived in Australia in 1998 on a student visa. Naveed Akram was 24 years old. He was the son. He's Australian born. He was previously assessed by the Australian Security Forces Services in 2019 due to his association with individuals linked to an Islamic State terror cell, but deemed not an immediate threat. That did not age well. Now, the only words I can use to describe this are reckless hate. Reckless hate. Because we have some universal truths in the West. You know, I'm just going to call it in the West now, guys. I don't even think I can. I used to think these universal truths were universal, but they can't be universal if they're not universal. You see where I'm going? So one of the universal truths I used to believe, and I'm struggling to not believe it still, but I don't think I can anymore, was that parents wanted to look after their children at all costs. You want the continuation of your children. You love your children more than you love yourself. You will give up stuff for your children. Okay? I used to think that was a universal truth. Now, this incident in Australia with Sajid Akram and Naveed Akram, the father and son, the shooting, at some point, they must have had a conversation. They must have had a conversation and they must have came to the agreement that they're going to go on Hanukkah on Bondi Beach and they're just going to start, you know. So for the father must have had so much reckless hate that he hated more than he loved his son. And how do you combat that, guys? Like, how do you combat that? What do you do? More money to mosques? Like, how do you combat that? You know, reports are indicated from mainstream media that the pair pledged allegiance to Islamic State, with Islamic State's flags found in their vehicle, you know. Now, I did hear initially that there were improvised explosive devices found in their vehicle. That story seems to have fizzled, so I don't know whether that's true or whether that was just misreporting initially. And this is part of World War IV. This is literally part of World War IV. So, which comes into World War III as well. So World War III will be fought overseas. It will be involve guns, tanks, bombs, trains, you know, uniformed soldiers. World War IV will be fought on our streets. And you guys can see it. There's going to be more of these things happen. There's going to be more of these things. James is saying, I've got a plan. I'm getting to a farm and I'm going to build a settlement for survivors. A farm has everything we need to survive. Yeah. We tried growing stuff last year. Well, was it this year? No, it was last year. Last year we tried growing tomatoes. It was an absolute fail, guys. Absolute fail. We didn't even get any tomatoes. They grew, the plants grew, but we didn't get any tomatoes. The year before that, we grew potatoes and we got loads of potatoes. We did really well with the potatoes. Would you suggest creating a plan with our local neighbors in case of such an event if it becomes? Yes, absolutely, guys. Absolutely. Look, guys, yeah, absolutely. You know, people need to create those plans with their neighbors and communities, especially if you guys want to secure your local area, basically. I've talked about this before. Basically, you want to work off Dunbar's number, which is, I think it's like, you know, it's under 150. I can never remember it. What is Dunbar's number? I think it's 146 or something, but I always do. It is. Okay. So Dunbar's number is a proposed cognitive limit for the number of people whom an individual can maintain a stable social relationship, estimated to be around 150. Yeah, so I'll use 150. Now, this is the Dunbar's number, basically, is 150 people. And that is the minimum number you need to provide a stable community. So you've got enough people who are electricians. You've got enough people who are, you know, carpenters. You've got enough people who know medical stuff. So you've got enough people to look after the kids while other people are doing other stuff and people are farming. 150. So wherever you live, this is what I would say, you know, if you want to go down that road, wherever you live, just think about like where 150 people are around you, and then try and use those people as your, as your workforce. Templar Mine said, I grow food every year. It's surprising how much money you save on shopping. Yeah, it is, guys. I wish I'd have grown more. I wish I'd have grown more. Absolute fail. Absolute fail. And then this year, I lost the energy this year, guys. I didn't grow anything. Right, so we've done the Bondi Beach. We have, guys. It's just reckless here. That's the only way I can. That's the only way I can describe it. And then this morning there was another article out from the. There was another article out this morning. The whole of the nation must step up amid Russian threat to NATO. Armed Forces Chief warned. So this is a guy called Richard Knighton, I think his name is, and he's going to call. So this is wild, guys. Okay. I'm quoting straight from this article, and this is an article from The Independent released this morning, Monday the 25th of December at 08:03. So this guy, Richard Knighton, will call on people who are not soldiers, not sailors, not aviators, to nevertheless invest their skills and money on building up national resilience. So I don't know what, so like we're getting taxed to death, and they're going to want people to invest their money. Like, we haven't got any money. We're being taxed. All our money's going in taxes. But any money, any spare money you've got, you need to invest it. You need to invest it in yourself, because we're not going to. Right, listen, guys, I am going to close this live stream down. You guys have been fantastic. Unless there's been another big, unless there's been another big development on this Bondi Beach front, I'm gonna leave it there, guys. But I just want people to, understand, and try and conceptualize having that conversation with your child at the dinner table or whatever. Having that conversation with your child. The amount of hate is clearly more than the amount of love. There's no denying that, guys. There must be more hate in that father's eyes than love for his own child, because these two people didn't plan on coming back. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to leave that there. You guys have been fantastic. I will be back on at 8 unless something drastic happens. Also, guys, just be vigilant this weekend. Friday the 19th, okay? If there's going to be a spectacular event, it's going to happen on Friday the 19th or this weekend. Anyway, guys, I will leave you to it, and I'll bid you good morning.